Hello and welcome to Connect MKE. I'm your host, Denise Callaway. There is a lot in Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers' $104 billion proposed two-year state budget. Tax cuts for the middle class, tax increases for the wealthy, more money for schools and municipalities, and tighter gun control laws. It's all a lot for us to unpack as the state legislature begins making decisions about what stays and what goes. Joining us to understand the budget and what's in it is Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers. Governor, thanks so much for joining us and walking us through some of the key issues to your proposal. Let's begin our discussion.
A lot, Denise. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's begin our discussion by talking about taxes, an issue folks may be thinking about since filing state and federal taxes was only a few weeks ago. Your plan calls for a 10% tax cut for the middle class. How is that accomplished?
Well, we've been doing that the last two budgets that I've had. The Republicans and the Democrats have at least come to some consensus on that issue, and we've reduced taxes. My first two budgets, and we're going to do it again. We're looking at a 10% tax cut that is for the middle class. So I know the Republicans are looking at something different, but I think it's really important that we focus on the people that need the resources the most, and that is our middle class and people that frankly are less than middle class. So we're looking at giving people a break that really need a break.
You are talking about a tax increase, but that would be for businesses that aren't paying taxes, and it would also be a tax on people who are wealthy. How much will they pay, and what would the state be able to do with those additional resources?
Well, we have all sorts of things we can do with the resources. We have plenty of needs in this state, whether it's working with for our kids at K through 12, but there's plenty of needs, and so I'm not necessarily concerned about the amount of money, because the ability for us to take care of all the things that we struggle with in the state of Wisconsin, it would take significant money. So the exact amount, how that plays out, it depends on how much money people make, frankly, and how their individual businesses do. But at the end of the day, what I want to do is make sure that that we get that tax cut to the middle class in the state of Wisconsin.
Is it also a matter of fairness when it comes to making sure that everyone is helping to support the many needs that we have in Wisconsin? If we have people who aren't paying their fair share, do you want to make sure that they do?
Well, of course, and that's just it. Some of the proposals that are coming out of the legislature talk about a flat tax, which would mean everybody pays the same percentage. Well, that to me, that's not fairness. I don't believe people that earn a lot of money necessarily need a tax break, and so we'll continue to work with the legislature to get some consensus here. But my position now is to make sure that our middle class is taken care of.
One of the things that municipalities around the state, whether they're big cities like Milwaukee or smaller communities, they really want to see a greater percentage of shared revenue coming back to communities. You're proposing that 20% of the state sales taxes that are collected go to communities and municipalities.
Yeah.
How will that work in terms of helping those municipalities meet some of the needs that they're having?
Well, it's just common sense. First of all, municipalities, whether cities or counties or even townships, they do a lot of the heavy lifting already, whether it's police, fire, EMTs, public libraries, public health, you name it. And over the last, I don't know the exact number of years, but it's over a decade, where the actual average increase in shared revenue to municipalities has been 0.041%, not 4%, not 0.4%, but 0.04%, which is just, you think about that over that period of time, and that's not adjusting it for inflation over that time. So cities and townships and counties have been doing more for less for a long time. So there is general consensus that we have to do something. And so the good news is we will do something. It's just a matter of us, my initial proposal is to do 20% of sales tax collected in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, for Milwaukee, for example, obviously, they are a economic engine of the state, and the amount of sales tax that ends up coming back to Milwaukee from or to the state from Milwaukee is a big hunk of change, and so I feel an obligation. I think most people feel an obligation to provide those resources to the municipalities and get them back in a better place. Like I said, no matter what it is, and it's not just a Milwaukee issue. I'll give you a small example. In a relatively smaller city in northern Wisconsin, about 15,000 people. That's big city in northern Wisconsin. They have, I was talking to their fire chief the other day, and if they go out on one run, that's all. The city better hope that they don't only have one activity, one fire, one EMT call at a time. And that's just, frankly, that's just not right. It's obviously not doing the people in that city any favors, but we have to invest more at the local level, bottom line.
One of the things that we'll have to go through the legislature that both the county executive and the mayor have talked about on our program is the need for Milwaukee to be able to raise some additional resources through a 1% sales tax. That's got to go through the legislature, and the legislature has to make that legislative change. Is that something you're in favor of? So Milwaukee has that opportunity to be able to raise additional dollars?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say 1% is on the short side too. I think it should be more. But yes, I think they should have the ability to do that. And I sense that there's some interest on the part of the legislature to do that. Some of the things we're talking about now is at what level. But yes, absolutely, they have some extraordinary, frankly, issues that other cities don't have. And they you think about all the things that happen in Milwaukee, whether it's amongst the brewers or any sort of recreational activities. It's a great place to go. It's a great place to spend money. Sales tax now comes to us, and then we need to get some of that back. But I think it's also prudent, and many other large cities in the country have that ability to have a small sales tax or applying to their revenues.
And potentially that would help other communities who might also have the ability to raise that sales tax as well, because some rural communities are also, as you were mentioning, really crunched by their ability to raise taxes.
Yeah. I think everybody's focusing on Milwaukee right now, but at some point in time we need to reconstruct that whole system and make sure that everybody gets the resources they need.
Let's move away from taxes for a minute and talk about some of the proposals in your budget that you say are really focused on helping working families. You're proposing 12 weeks of paid family leave for Wisconsinites. Who benefits from that, and why does the state have to step in to do that, to push for that?
Yeah, that's a great question, but it's done by several states in the U.S. And what it does is it puts, I'll use the opposite. Well, Minnesota will be passing this in the very near future. It's on the docket now, and I anticipate it'll pass. Once that happens, the counties along western Wisconsin will have even more trouble finding workers, because a lot of the workers they get right now live across the river in Minnesota. But and it doesn't take a lot of brain power to think through this. If Minnesota has it and we don't, where are those people going to work? They're going to work in Minnesota, and so it's the right thing to do. I understand, there's good reasons to have that. I think paid leave is something that is a reasonable expectation for workers. But from the business end of things, and I've talked to businesses, in the La Crosse area, and they're concerned about that. They're not concerned, so they're looking to do it themselves. And there's firms that do it in Wisconsin. They provide it, but I think it's time to have the discussion about it, and so hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Again, does this come back to that issue of fairness? So
Yeah.
everyone who might need that time, whether it's for the birth or adoption of a child or their own or their own personal illness, people have the opportunity to take that time without potentially facing financial ruin.
Sure, and it's we want to have the opportunity to have people people want to work. My spouse of 50 years, she's worked until she retired every year, and in that time, and she's had 2 deliveries in that time too, and it's hard. You want the mom or dad in any case to help get kids off to a good start in life, and that's not a Republican or Democrat issue. That's just common sense. And right now, that pay is usually not paid for. And if we really want kids to get off a good start, having them be with their mom or dad is an important thing.
You'd also like to see an expansion of BadgerCare, which provides health insurance for Wisconsinites. About 90,000 people, and it could save the state $1.6 billion. You
Right.
don't have consensus across the aisle that that's something that they're willing to move forward with at this point.
At this point, no, and it's too bad. Some not only would it allow more people to get good health insurance through Medicaid, but it also brings in money that we can use for all sorts of issues that trouble our state and trouble other states too. That's why there's only 10 states left in the U.S. that have not taken this BadgerCare initiative or expansion or Medicaid expansion, whichever term you want to use. And so we're 10. And believe me, it's none of our neighboring states are part of that issue. We're alone, and it's I hear the stories of, well, we don't want to have people dependent on government. Well, it's not that. It's we want our people to be healthy and have good opportunities to take care of themselves. We have so much disproportionately poor health outcomes in this state, whether it's Black women and their babies or Native Americans on their tribal grounds. We have lots of needs here. We could begin to take care of them with that money that we get from the federal government that our taxpayers sent there. So it makes common sense to me. We're still having trouble, frankly, getting people to understand the common sense of it.
One other thing that you want to enact is some common sense, as you see it, gun legislation, where you're proposing background checks for people to purchase guns, red flag laws, both of these as safeguards. Is there enough support for that in the legislature, particularly the way that we are seeing across this country? It seems like every single day, some kind of a mass shooting.
Yeah, and it's a shame. We had obviously we've tried in 2 budgets to make this happen. This is the 3rd one. At least once I've had to call a special session on this. Well, frankly, I'd be really happy just to have a discussion of it on the floor of the Senate or the Assembly, or hopefully both. Let's have a discussion when leadership just shuts it down. That isn't real helpful for a democracy. We need to have a discussion on this. Yes, I do think that some gun safety and there are common sense universal background checks, red flag laws that have lots of things built in to make sure no one's losing their right to carry an arm with all sorts of safeguards there. But if someone is incapable of keeping himself or herself or those around him safe because they have a gun, then we have to at least have that option taken, have a judge make that determination to temporarily remove that gun from that person. So we should be doing that. It's very, very difficult to get that through the legislature. We'll see. I haven't heard anything about it this time. I know we included it in some other bills, so we're hopeful to get it. But at the end of the day, we have some convincing to do.
One thing you've also really moved forward quite a bit is really addressing the needs and the funding to address the ongoing opioid epidemic. Here in Milwaukee, every 16 hours in Milwaukee County, we have someone who dies of an opioid overdose. You had about $8 million in harm reduction, treatment, and prevention that you have been trying to get through the legislature, but it can't get past the Republicans. What's the holdup? It seems that given the epidemic that we have, this would be money that should come back to communities and help out citizens.
Yeah, Denise, that's a great question, because if the legislature gave themselves some power during the before I became governor to do just this, and that is they took some authority away from the attorney general, and so if there's money, in this case over the opioid lawsuits that we've had, it goes to the Joint Finance Committee. They can do anything they want to. Obviously they couldn't spend it on something not related to opioids, but they decide. They decide what they and the Republicans. There's really no reason for them saying to our Department of Health Services, "Oh, by the way, we have this money. We're not going to give it to you. We don't like your plan," and then come back with another plan or come back with another plan. Now, the people at Department of Health Services have a good plan, but it shouldn't be up to just a handful of people in the legislature to do this and not really give them any leeway or any reason for not doing it. It's a power play, and it's hurting people, obviously. So hopefully they'll come to their senses and they'll make some either tell the Department of Health what has to happen differently, or just get it out the door and get it to people. I mean, this isn't rocket science, for God's sakes.
One other thing we want to talk about is the outcome of the Supreme Court election made it pretty clear that people in Wisconsin support the idea of abortion rights for women. That's something that you and the Attorney General are working on through a lawsuit to get rid of our old 1849 ban on abortion. How hopeful are you that something is going to happen in a positive way that helps women protect their reproductive and health rights?
Yeah, I thought from the beginning that that lawsuit that we filed has a chance, regardless of who won election for the Supreme Court last April or beginning of April. It's a common sense lawsuit. Subsequent to 1849, when my predecessor was in office, and even before that, the Republicans passed bills to, you have to have two doctors okay an abortion. I can't even remember all of them. There are some small changes made, but by doing that, is the legislature essentially said abortions are legal in Wisconsin. How do you limit something that doesn't exist? It's not even common sense. So I anticipate that, and we're going to work hard. I mean, this is something that people in Wisconsin, not just women, people in Wisconsin care about. It's an important issue. Women should have the right to make those decisions, and we shouldn't be putting our OBGYNs in the position that they've been put into to make decisions with women that are about to, frankly, die because they are not getting the services that they need. So this is a big deal. We're going to win this case, and I'm fine with going back to the way it was before Roe v. Wade disappeared.
Governor, thank you so much. You have been very generous with your time. We really appreciate you spending some time here with us today.
Thanks, Denise. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
The proposed biennial budget also contains some big proposals for K-12 spending in Wisconsin. Coming up, we'll get the details and talk education with Wisconsin State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Stay with us.